Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talking Cardboard. As always, my name is Cory, and it is finally that time of year again where I go over my top 50 favorite board games of all time, starting with the first segment here, my games 50 down to number 46. Let's get started. Okay, and that's right, today's segment are games 50 down to 46. I've got my list here to remind myself on where the games fell on last year's list or if they're brand new to the list. And also, I think I would be doing you all a disservice if I didn't include some honorable mentions. So I'm going to go through about 10 honorable mentions real quick first, and then get into games 50 down to 46, breaking into my top 50 favorite board games of all time. So starting with some honorable mentions, I'm just going to fly through these titles real quick and not discuss any part of them at all. I just wanted to mention the names of them so you can go out and check them out on your own and to see if those games would interest you at all, because I just feel like if I left them off the list here that they were so close to my top 50 favorite games, I had to include them here. So the first one on the list is called Kingless, a small little card game. Have had a lot of fun with it. The next game was actually number 42 on my list last year, but just barely fell off the list this year, and that is Food Chain Magnate, a really heavy economic Euro game. Next on the honorable mentions is Gizmos, a really fun engine building game with a bunch of different colored marbles, a lot of fun. Under Falling Skies just missed the list also. This game is a very fun solo game, solo only, where you are rolling out dice and putting them in a base to fend off aliens from coming down to Earth. So that's been a lot of fun. Another honorable mention was number 39 on my list last year, and that is Architects of the West Kingdom. Architects of the West Kingdom, one of my favorite games in the whole lineup of the Renegade Game Studios there. And, you know, you might hear some mentions of other games of this type on the list later, but that one just barely missed the list. Another game I've been having a lot of fun with is called Shamans. It is a twist on trick-taking where you've got some hidden roles involved. You've got some good guys and some bad guys like the shadow people, and you're trying to deduce who is who, all in the while playing tricks to either eliminate players or keep players alive. So Shamans has been a lot of fun. Also just missing the list, Tiny Epic Kingdoms. My favorite game in the Tiny Epic line is Tiny Epic Kingdoms, and like I said, so spoilers, you won't be seeing any other Tiny Epic games on the list, but this one, like I said, just barely missed the list. Been having a ton of fun with this one. A really small package itself, but provides a lot of punch in the gameplay, so really liking Tiny Epic Kingdoms. Another big game, big Euro game, Scythe. You know, you've got the mechs and a little bit of area control and resource management and kind of a race to become victorious in these different goals throughout the game. So Scythe is a lot of fun. This next game was number 48 on the list last year and barely just missed it at number 52 this year, and that is Point Salad. Just a nice little light filler game where you're either choosing vegetables to add in front of you, or you're choosing goal cards to put those vegetables towards to get victory points. So nice little light filler game, that is Point Salad. And barely missing it at number 51 this year was Dominion, the granddaddy of all deck building games. It's been in my top 100 for like 10 years now, and I just feel like I would be doing a disservice if I did not mention Dominion, because that is one of the games that started it all for me. So I had to just at least include that in an honorable mention here. So without further ado, let's get into game number 50. All right, and game number 50 was number 35 last year, so just dropping 15 places. Not too bad, it's still staying strong in the top 50 games of all time, and that is Raiders of the North Sea. Raiders of the North Sea, like I had mentioned in my honorable mentions in Architects of the West Kingdom, it's got that same art style, same lineup of games, but I just like it a little bit better than Architects. It is actually, spoilers again, my favorite game in that whole lineup and genre of all the West Kingdoms and North Sea games. So just really like Raiders of the North Sea. Basically, it is a worker placement game with a twist to it, and the twist to the gameplay is what I really enjoy about it, where you place a worker on a location location to take an action, and then you can pull a different worker off of a different location to take another action. And those are the only two actions you get on your turn, and then play passes to your other opponents around the table, and they do the same thing. And you're basically trying to collect resources and make your war band of Viking heroes on your ship better than the rest of the players, so that you can take them and go out and raid different towns to essentially get victory points that way. So Raiders of the North Sea has just been a staple in my collection for years and years, and came in at number 50 this year. All right, and number 49 is a light filler game that is brand new to the list this year, and I got it played a lot this past year. That is one of the reasons why it probably slipped into the top 50, but that game is Fantasy Realms. Fantasy Realms has just been loads of fun, and is very, very quick. It plays in only about 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes if people are really thinking, but it's a very simple game at its core. All you're doing on your turn is either laying a card down and taking a different card off the table to add it to your hand, or taking a card off the deck, and you're just manipulating your hand throughout the entire game. In the beginning of the game, you have a starting hand of cards, and you are just discarding and picking up cards and keeping that same hand size throughout the entire game. And the whole object of the game is that by the end, you want to have the best hand of cards that combo with one another. Because some cards have different requirements, like I might have a card that requires that I have the Blizzard at the end of the game to have the most points, or the Queen or the King in my hand at the end of the game to get the most points, and all these different requirements. And if you have the Queen and the Queen is looking for the King, and you see somebody discard the King face up onto the table, you're going to rush to go ahead and take that king to your hand and get rid of a different card out of your hand, because those two cards work really well together. And that's basically the gist of the game. You are just trying to manipulate your hand the best you can throughout the game. Like I said, it only takes about 5 to 10 minutes, very, very quick. And by the end of the game, you want your hand to combo with itself the best out of any of the other players around the table, and whoever has the most points wins. So Fantasy Realms has been a ton of fun, and is a very light, quick filler that has some thinky tactical strategy to it that I think you would really enjoy. So if you haven't tried it yet, definitely give it a try. All right, and my number 48 game was number 19 last year, so it's dropped quite a few places, and it's still a fantastic game, still made my top 50 favorite games of all time, so, no harm done, no foul. Everything's fine, guys, don't panic. But the reason I think it fell so much is that we only get it to the table a few times a year, and usually it's during our 24-hour gaming marathon event, because we have a large enough group of people that it's exciting to play with, the maximum number of players that you can. Usually about 5 to 6 players is the sweet spot for this game, and we don't get that many players to the table very often unless it's during that big event once a year. And that game is Downforce. So Downforce, a ton of fun. Actually, this coming Saturday here, we have our live streaming event where we're playing from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're from Minnesota, so it's in the Central Standard Time. We'll be just playing games for as long as we can, about 20 hours straight or 17 hours straight, as long as we can last. But we're definitely starting at 7, and we're going at least 7 a.m. and we're going at least until midnight. So tune in for that and definitely watch us live. But Downforce is one of the games that we bring to the table every single year for that event, and it just goes over like gangbusters. Everybody has just a blast. What I like most about Downforce is, yes, it is a racing game, but it's got a betting element to it too, to where you can bet on whichever cars you think will win the race, and it doesn't have to be necessarily your car. You can pick and choose a color car to be yours that you are rooting for, and can get some bonus points at the end of the game if your car wins, but you don't have to pick your car to win the whole game. You could bet on somebody else's car to win, and you could still take first place doing it that way. So I think that's what I like the most about it is, and it's simple card play. You're just playing a card down onto the table, and whatever colors are on the card with whatever number next to the colors are what color of car you have to move that many spaces. So very simple. It's also fun trying to block people in, because some of of the paths around the track get very narrow, so maybe only 1 or 2 cars can fit at a time. And if you can manipulate the board just right to block some of the other cars behind the cars you are rooting for, that is kind of fun to do as well. So blocking for position, trying to root for your car to win, but if you see that your car is falling behind, you can bet on somebody else's car to win, and if that car wins, you get bonus points for that because you bet on them. Like I said, even if it's not your own car. So just all those elements together just make this game a blast to play every time. And if you have not played Downforce, give it a try. They have a bunch of different maps that you can try for the game too, so it never gets old. The 2 maps in the base game are the most boring maps. They're just the most generic, so I would definitely recommend getting 1 or 2 of the expansions to give yourself some other maps to play along with. But yeah, Downforce is just a blast, and I would highly recommend it. Okay, and number 47 was number 27 on the list last year, and it is kind of a duo mashup of games here because both games are just so similar. I had to put both together on the same spot on the list here. So number 47 is either Black Angel or Trois. I could pick either or any given day. I play Trois more often, but I have been wanting to get Black Angel to the table more recently because it's got that cool space theme to it, but they're essentially a very, very similar style game. Let me just talk about Trois here first. What's really cool in Trois is that whatever dice you have in front of you, it doesn't necessarily mean that those are going to be your dice for the rest of the round, because other people can buy the dice from you, give you money for your dice if they really need those values of dice for themselves, whether you like it or not. So that is really fun in Trois. Black Angels has some similarity as well, but in Black Angel you are placing dice in different areas around this spaceship to basically try to get humanity to the planet Spess, and you are traveling through space. You can send these little space robots out to fight off some aliens and then send them back to the ship too, and you're just trying to get these victory points in really cool ways. But it's cool to try to steal dice from other players, and then other players might steal dice from you, and there's a lot of back and forth tension in that. So that is Black Angel and Trois. Okay, and the last game on the list for today, number 46, was number 32 last year, so just dropping a little bit, but really staying strong, high up in my top 50 games of all time. I've played this game for years and years also. It's a little card game that comes in a small box for cheap value. I mean, you get a lot of value for the cost of it. It's only like 15, 20 bucks at the most for this deck of cards, and you just get a ton of value, a ton of replayability out of even the base box. And this game is Star Realms. So like I said, in Star Realms, it just comes in this little deck box of cards. And it is deck building, so you are buying cards from this buy row to add them to your discard pile, and then as you shuffle them in to your draw pile and draw them into your hand later in the round or later in the game, your hand of cards will get better and better, and your deck will get better and better, and you keep upgrading it to try to attack your opponent to get them from 50 health down to 0 health, and whoever can attack their opponent down to 0 health first wins the game. But just the combo nature in this game and the way all the cards play off of each other is the most fun. There are 4 different factions in this game, and each faction plays completely differently. You can mix and match different factions. You can go after only 1 or 2 factions. You can mix in 3 out of the 4 factions, and you can really have fun with the way the cards combo off of one another. And the way that works is usually a lot of the cards have this base ability to where it either gives you some money to buy new cards on your turn, or maybe some health to try to regain health, or some attack value to attack your opponent with. But a lot of them have another ability lower on the card that says that if you play another card of the same faction on that turn, you also get to do that really powerful ability on the bottom. So you're trying to buy other cards that are similar in similar factions to trigger one another to get these really cool effects out of them. So that is what I like probably the most in Star Realms. Another thing that I really like that I haven't seen done in a lot of games, maybe it was one of the first games to do it, but it is, you can also buy these cards that are bases that you turn horizontally and keep in front of you. And the base card, when that sits in front of you, that'll actually soak up attack damage, because there are some bases that give you not only an innate power that pops off every turn and keeps making your turn better and better until your opponent decides to destroy it, but some of the base cards have a defense value that looks a little bit different, and it means that your opponent has to get through that base before they get onto you and hurt your health points. So that's cool too. I have a lot of fun trying to buy up a bunch of different base cards into my deck, and when I draw them and lay them down in front of me, it feels really cool and powerful if you get enough of them in front of you that you know your opponent has to fight through those bases before they can even touch your health points. So that is really cool, really neat too. So just the card combos, the different factions working off of one another, the different bases that can protect you from your opponent until they finally get through to you, and just that back and forth tension trying to get your opponent down to 0 health. Those are all the things that I love about Star Realms. Like I said, I've been playing for years. I've been playing digitally on the mobile app a lot. I also do still pull out the card game quite often. There is a spin-off called Hero Realms that is more of the fantasy version with like knights and swords and armor and that sort of thing. I have not played that one, but I would highly recommend, they're both very similar. I would highly recommend picking up either Star Realms or Hero Realms, whatever suits your fancy the best, because both are just fantastic, fantastic little card games that pack a lot of punch into a small box for a very low price point. So that is Star Realms. Alright, and that does it for today's video. Like I said, this is the first segment in many segments to come of my top 50 favorite board games of all time. I am really excited to dive into this. Every year I get just super excited to talk about my new top 50 favorite board games of all time, whether they've already been on the list before or if they're brand new to the list. I'm excited to talk about them nonetheless because, well, they are my top 50 favorite board games of all time, so they must be fantastic, right? So anyway, leave comments below with your favorite board games of all time. I would love to hear what some of your favorites are, and stay tuned for the future segments as I get closer and closer to my #1 favorite game of all time. And if you've watched these lists before, you know what my #1 game has been throughout all these years, because I've been doing this list on YouTube here for at least the last few years, and the #1 has not been dethroned yet. So stay tuned to see if my #1 is still #1 or if it has fallen and there is a new king to the castle. So stay tuned for that, and until next time, you all have fun gaming.